Anticipating the upcoming wipe and Season 2 starting, I wanted to make a video to show all the new people that are returning to the game some useful information, tips, and tricks that I've learned over my time playing. This video is mostly designed for people that are new, as well as returning to the game, but also has some good little tips and tricks in it for people that have been playing for a while. Because of the amount of information packed into this video, I will make sure to timestamp as I do with all my videos, as well as I plan to start this off with a little index so you know what's to come. Additionally, there's a few things in this video that I could actually make an entire video on, but I felt that they should at least briefly be covered within this guide. The first topic within this video is going to be some useful web links that I've come across throughout my time playing. The first webpage is lastoasiscrafter.com. This site is extremely useful when you're trying to build anything in quantity, as well as if you want to look up the materials to build or upgrade anything within the game. And it's a very simple site to use. All you have to do is type in whatever you're looking for in the search bar, or at least a portion of it, and then hit the little plus icon to add it to your crafting list. From there, you can click on the quantity button to adjust the amount of items you want to make. And at the bottom of the page, it will show you a complete list for all of the materials required to make the items that you're looking for. One of my favorite times to use this site is when I'm building a brand new warship and I need to know what I need for the ship, for the upgrades, as well as for all the guns and ammo that I plan to put on it. Or when making a mass amount of kits to be able to kit that ship out. In the past, Last Oasis Crafter has always been very good about updating their site for any new items coming out once they become live. At the time of recording, Season 2 has not quite started, so there's a few items that are not currently on here that came out within the beta branch. That said, I'm confident that these items will be added to the list very soon. One side note that I'd like to add is that when you select an item, it only gives you the required materials to build that item, which means that you may have to add some extra stuff or make another list for some of the base materials required to create the secondary materials for that item, such as things like wood and fiber to make wood shafts. Next up on the list is craftpedia.info/last-oasis. This site has a wide variety of information on it, from what you need to build things to certain stats on said items, but my personal favorite use for this is using the damage calculator to check and see what gear setups fare against what types of weapons. You can also include player damage stats to be able to see how that would affect different weapons against different gear sets. This site can also be used to check out the carry weight, hit points, armor type, as well as pack count on different walkers. Last up on this list is lastoasis.gamepedia.com. The reason I've put this last on my list is that the information is a little hard to sift through, as well as it's hard to navigate their site, but there is lots of useful information on here if you're willing to take the time to sort through it all. One of the main things I use this website for is comparing walkers. However, because it is a Gamepedia, it is player controlled, so sometimes the information isn't as correct as you would like it to be, as well as it's usually quite slow to be updated. Now please keep in mind, Last Oasis is constantly updated, so sometimes the information on these websites aren't totally correct, or sometimes the websites can actually be quite buggy, but for the most part these websites can be a good resource to use when needed. Next up, I'm going to show you the different types of tiles that you can go to once you leave the cradle, as well as good information that you can see before you enter each tile. But please keep in mind, immediately after the wipe, the only available tiles will be medium tiles. The rest of the maps will be rolled out in the coming weeks. Each type of tile has a different icon. When you're first looking to leave the starting zone, I would highly suggest you find a medium tile. When you click on a different tile, it brings up a box on the right hand side. This box will provide you with a lot of important information about the server. Starting on the right at the top, you will see the name of the tile. Below that, following the right side down, you will see the location of the server. With the way Last Oasis is set up, if you zoom out far enough, you can go from one end of the map to the other, and you can follow from the EU all the way to Southeast Asia, all on one map. Below that is the type of tile. This is also indicated by multiple different diamonds. The harder the tile, the more diamonds, and they will change from yellow to red. Below that is an indicator of how full a server is. This will switch from spacious to crowded to full, and unless you're an experienced player, I would not suggest being on any tile that is not spacious. The last important thing to look for is the player hostilities. This is indicated by a red and a green box, and each one has a number. The red box indicates how many individual players have gotten a kill over the past approximate 12-hour basis, and the green number shows the approximate amount of people on the tile itself, not including those who have been the aggressor in a hostile interaction. The last piece of important information when looking at the tile is the red timer in the top left corner that shows when the tile will decay. When this timer counts all the way down, any ship on this map that has not been favorited will burn, and you will not be able to get it back. On that note, to favorite a ship, you have to be in the lobby, and you'll look at the top center of your screen, right below where it says local map and world map, for a little heart icon. If you click that little icon, you can favorite 5 different walkers, as well as you can have 5 different walkers favorited by the clan, but these ships have to be donated to the clan. One side note about favorited walkers is that when you use the pack function to pack a walker, it will remove this walker from your favorites list, so you will have to re-add it, but it does show a little notification saying that this will happen. In total, there's 6 different types of maps. There's the starting zone, the medium zones, the hard zones, the lava zones, and then 2 different types of event maps, being the asteroid crash site, which is used primarily to get iron, and the ancient city, which is primarily used for an abundance of different traders. The medium, hard, and lava tiles all have 2 different variations, but only the 2 different lava maps have a difference in resources. One of those is the original lava map, and the other is the Volcanion map, which is a lava map combined with a medium map. Of those 2 maps, you can only get cattail on the Volcanion map. Something to keep in mind while looking at any of the different tiles is that if a tile is not claimed, it will not show player hostilities or how spacious the tile is. When trying to decide what type of map to go to, there's a couple different things to keep in mind. Each different map may or may not have certain resources on it. Medium tiles are good for a lot of the basics, but do not have clay, lava, obsidian, feathers, or a spot to use a soil excavator to collect earthwax. As well as the majority of the map is usually taken up by open deserts, so that makes it much harder for people to grief you using wingsuits. Hard maps contain clay, as well as spots to use a soil excavator for earthwax, and they are densely populated by trees, but keep in mind that makes them one of the most likely places to be hit by a griefer using a wingsuit. The original lava tiles are very spacious, they don't have a lot of trees on them, they've got an abundance of bone, but there's nowhere for you to collect clay, as well as there's nowhere to collect cattail. Moving on, the Volcanion maps are very similar to the original volcano maps, except they've got large canyons full of redwood trees and cattail. Of these tiles, all types of hard and volcano maps have a chance to spawn a permanent fabricator, also known as an ancient fabricator. This is the place where you can create tablets using fragments and torque, but I'll cover that in a little bit more detail later in this video. Last but not least are the 2 event maps that I mentioned before. These maps spawn with a short 2-hour duration and are intended to go in, do what you need to do, and get back out. They are not intended for a place to live, and usually there's a lot of player hostilities on these maps. In the asteroid crash sites, the primary objective is to go in and hit the large, black and orange glowing rocks that will give you iron ore. To do so, you need to use at least an advanced pickaxe. And the ancient city tiles have an abundance of traders on them, as well as they have windmills that you can repair using a repair hammer and then pull from the top using a harpoon, and they have a small loot cache inside of them that has a chance to drop high value items such as tablets, gear, and more complex items to craft like bone glue and nomad cloth. That pretty much sums up the different maps. Next I'll be moving on to the new resources that you have access to once you've left the cradle. Now this is one of those topics where I could make an entire video on where to find each different item. So instead, I've roughly color coded each one of the items, and in the bottom right corner you can see what each color correlates to. Now on this list, there's a couple things which you can get in certain areas, such as ash and charcoal. You can get those in the medium zones, but to do so you've got to cook something in a campfire. And this list is more intended to show what you can collect from each map, with the 2 major exceptions being reinforced planks and iron ingots. Both of those have to be cooked in separate ways. One thing I should mention is while trying to keep things simple, there are a couple things you can find on Volcanion maps. Mainly that's cattail, redwood, and thornberries. For those of you leaving the cradle for the first time, I've included a short clip of how to collect cattail, bone splinters, as well as aloe on a medium map. One thing I'd like to add that I didn't include in the clip is if you hit the small red and black mushrooms that are in the valleys in the medium maps, this will give you mushroom flesh, as well as you can collect sulfur from this. In the early game, one of the best uses for the mushroom flesh is you put it into a stomping station and you can create earthwax instead of having to mine rocks to get your earthwax. Next up is the crafting stations. In my previous tutorial video, I showed all 4 of the basic crafting stations that you would use within the starting zone. But for those of you that haven't seen that video, I'm going to just briefly go over a couple functions of the stomping station, as well as the advanced fiber working station, as well as a very brief look at the purification station and the obsidian machine. The advanced fiber working station can do everything a normal fiber working station can do, as well as it can be used to make nomad cloth. The purification station will be needed later in the game for creating liquid fuel out of animal fat and sulfur to power the advanced forge. And last but not least is the obsidian machine. This creates lava fuel using lava, corn, and purified water. Next up on the list is a couple of the commonly used gear sets that you can acquire within the medium maps. Currently, some of the most commonly used gear is going to be the sawtooth sword for your 2-hand, a bone spike sword for your 1-hand, fiber head wrap, basswood chest, improvised bottle, forester sleeves, and forester boots. But due to the fact that you have to use tablets to be able to unlock forester boots and forester gloves, Rupu fur sleeves and Rupu fur sandals are another decent substitute, as well as brittle bone chest pieces can also be substituted for the basswood chest piece. In one of the most recent updates to the game, you can no longer grapple players to slow them, so the more commonly used armor types may change a bit in the coming days. Next, I'm going to cover a couple of the ways that you can get frags, as well as turn those fragments into tablets. Alternatively, with the new trader system, you can actually purchase tablets from specific traders using flots. And the best way to get those flots is by doing different missions at the different trade stations. Keep in mind, when you run out of missions to do at a trade station, you can just hop over to a different tile and do the missions at that trade station. I would highly suggest focusing on the scouting and clearing Rupu camp missions to be able to collect flots. That is one of the most efficient ways to be able to earn flots within Last Oasis. Currently, the most efficient way to get large amounts of fragments is to make harpoons and do the pull chests. The easiest way to do these chests is to shoot the box through the structure, being careful not to hit any of the structure or some of the ghost zones, and then drag the box into the structure. This will break it without you having to drag it all around the map. The other ways to collect fragments are to clear the crash sites, as well as killing Rupus, or shooting the fire chests. However, I would not recommend wasting fire arrows on the fire chests, because they no longer give as many fragments as they used to. Also, if you're collecting fragments on a lava map, there's 4 different ways to collect them. There's pull chests, burn towers that you can burn using just a handheld torch, towers with bags hanging on them that you can climb, collect the bags, as well as open the chest at the top, and finally, large sites with a big rock on the top that you can hit a couple times and open a barrel and collect some bone from the inside. The frag sites on the lava map have the perk of also giving some more advanced materials such as nomad cloth. Now, to get tablets, there's 3 main ways to do it. There's buying it from the trader using flots like I mentioned earlier, as well as 2 different types of fabricators. One is a permanent fabricator that can be found on most hard and lava tiles, as well as a temporary fabricator that can be found only on hard tiles. The large fabricators require 400 fragments and 1000 torque, and on average get you 4 or more tablets. But because they're in a permanent location, it's much easier for people to find or camp them, making it a lot less safe to create your tablets there unless you've got a large group. The temporary fabricators, on the other hand, spawn in any site that a frag site can spawn, making them much harder to find, as well as much harder for people to find. And to use the temporary fabricator, it requires 100 fragments and 400 torque. Now, in the older days of Last Oasis, there was a chance you could get 0 tablets out of this. I personally have seen this once before, but only once, and it's been a very long time since I've heard of this happening. However, I have heard of people getting up to 5 tablets out of the 1 temporary fabricator. Next up on my list, I'm going to go over some of the best ways to get experience. Currently, the 3 best ways to get experience in order would be hand harvesting certain materials such as corn and Rupu vine using a scythe, crafting in very large quantities, as well as harvesting using a walker equipped with the maximum amount of forager and or lumberjack modules. But this method has been highly nerfed. Now, there's a couple things left that I'd like to quickly go over in this video, but each of these topics has room for an entire video. The first thing I'm going to talk about is walkers. In this game, there's a very wide variety of walkers. Each one can be used for a specific purpose, or it can be customized to do just about anything. However, certain walkers specialize at things better than others. Because of the amount of differences in each walker, I intend to make an entire video just dedicated to the different walkers. But for now, I've included a short clip of me flying over all of the walkers that were currently in the game prior to the beta branch, minus the panda walker. All of the walkers that were included after the beginning of the beta branch were typically designed to fill specialized and/or specific roles within the game, such as walker transportation, base building, and easier collection of certain items like lava. For that reason, I'm not too concerned about getting them into this video because it's already long enough as is. Next up, I'd like to include a couple little tips and tricks about building and grappling. When it comes to building, there's been a new system implemented, which is item decay. If you want to avoid having your building decay, you have to place a maintenance chest in it and put whatever required materials it asks for. But keep in mind, you can put more of those same materials in there to make it last longer than just a day. Now, whenever you build any sort of a base, you should always try and layer it as many times as you can, but at a bare minimum, you should always include at least one airlock per door. And by airlock, I mean a chamber that has a door on either side, so if somebody follows you in, they can't get directly into your main base. Now, as for grappling, the only things I wanted to mention are the fact that you have to realize that all the grapple controls are very directional based. If you hit forward from a dead stop, you will move forward. If you hit backwards from a dead stop, you will move backwards. Same thing with side to side. You can use this to your advantage when trying to move in any different way, as well as if you think you're going to hit the ground, you hold the back button and it will slow you down and decrease the likelihood of you taking damage. And when swinging, you should try and avoid doing a forward arc and focus more on moving slightly side to side through the trees. This will allow you to get far more forward momentum instead of a lot of upwards momentum. But as with the walkers, I intend to make a full video just on grappling. As for the different types of grapples, there are 4 different types. There's the repaired, which is what you start with, the fast grapple, which is much shorter but reels in faster, the long grapple, which as its name suggests is much longer, which allows you to get a much larger swing and more distance, but it reels slower, and my personal favorite, the beltless grapple, which both has a reasonably large range as well as a reduced stamina cost to use. Keep in mind you can pair the long grapple with a torque backpack, which will increase its reel speed, but normally a long grapple is used while trying to wingsuit, so it creates some issues between the two because they hold the same slot. There's a couple little tips and tricks I'd like to include right at the end of the video. They mainly have to do with trying to protect yourself within the Oasis. Some of the best ways to do this is to try and set up some sort of a driver protection. Now in the current game this is much harder to do, but some of the more commonly used methods are to use remote ballistas as well as walker climbers to try and cover your driver. Additionally, you should always be scanning the horizon and looking around as well as listening for any sorts of signs of other nomads coming to try and attack you. Because this is a full drop loot game, it's always safest to try and keep your items within your haul. That said, once you're out of the starting zone, people can get materials to craft fire arrows to break into your haul, so it's not considered 100% safe. The best way to keep items 100% safe is to keep them on a walker and keep that walker in the lobby at all points in time. If you need to transfer items on or off of it, try to do it in the bubble and safe log it well in the bubble. One other thing I'd like to mention is that if you look at the outsides of the map is actually much larger than just the ring that you see around it, so you can head out that way. But most people know about this. Once you get past a certain point off the edge of the map, there's a sandstorm effect that makes it quite hard to see. But please keep in mind, people within the inside of the map can still see out without this effect, so it leaves you vulnerable to being attacked without realizing someone's coming up on you. Now as always, I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and let me know down in the comments any tips or tricks or good advice you would have for people joining in Last Oasis. And feel free to let me know if you think there's anything I forgot to add into this video. As mentioned before, there's quite a few dedicated videos that I intend to make, so I hope to see you on the next one.